Welcome to another deep dive, and this time we're stepping into the world of King Arthur.
Oh, but there's a twist, right?
Definitely a twist. We're going off the beaten path. You ready for this? Our source material is a fantasy novel. It's called The Bright Sword, and it takes those Arthurian legends we think we know, but it puts a whole new spin on things.
Interesting.
Yeah, so instead of focusing on the usual suspects like Arthur or Lancelot, this deep dive, we're going to get to know Sir Colin of the Out Isles.
Sir Colin.
Yeah, he's navigating this post-Arthurian Britain, a world where chivalry bumps up against some harsh realities, and those echoes of Camelot's glory, they're starting to fade, you know?
I like it already. What strikes me about The Bright Sword, is that it just throws us right into this world where the old order's crumbling. And it acknowledges that it's playing with historical detail, adding in some anachronisms and contradictions, but that's part of the storytelling. It lets the author explore these deeper themes without being bound by strict historical accuracy.
Right from the start, we meet Colin as a young boy. And, oh my gosh, his existence is bleak. He's a servant at Dub Hall, and there's even this hint of abuse, almost a Dickensian in its harshness.
Yeah.
But amidst all this hardship, he finds solace in something so unexpected: swordsmanship.
That is a contrast. Yeah, that's what makes his character so compelling, right? He comes from this brutal background, but he's drawn to these ideals of Camelot, a world that, from where he is, seems impossibly distant.
Oh, totally.
Romanticized. And what's interesting is that he's not aiming for the throne. He's not even seeking glory. He just longs for something better, something more honorable.
Yeah, it's like those classic underdog stories.
Yeah.
But the author throws in these details that make you question the very world that he's striving for.
Exactly.
Even before he reaches Camelot.
Yeah.
There are these hints that it might not be the paradise he imagines. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. Think about that unsettling encounter, early on with the drunken giant. He warns Colin that Sir Bleoberis is gone. It seems like a minor detail at first.
Right.
But it foreshadows the instability and the potential dangers lurking beneath the surface of this seemingly glorious world.
I felt that way with that mysterious woman at the end. Do you remember her?
Oh, yeah.
The one who warns him about a sword in the sea.
A sword in the sea.
Felt like a prophecy.
Yeah.
Shrouded in mystery. And it really left me wondering, what deeper forces are at play in this world?
I think that encounter introduces us to this concept of the other world, this realm that blends magic and reality, and that's where things start to get really interesting. Now, Colin initially dismisses her, as a fairy, but as he's journeying toward Camelot, he stumbles upon, what does he stumble upon? A fairy ring of toadstools.
It's like, whoa, what's real and what's magical here?
Exactly.
It blurs those lines, and it definitely sets the stage for some of the more fantastical elements that unfold.
For sure. The novel also dives into the political landscape of this post-Arthurian Britain. We see this power vacuum.
Huge power vacuum.
Left by Arthur's death, and figures like Rience emerge, clearly vying for control.
It's like the world's holding its breath, waiting to see who will step into that void and what kind of leader they will be.
And it's not just about individual ambition either. It's about the legacy of Arthur.
Right.
The ideals he represented and how those ideals are being tested in this new reality.
Well, and the remaining Knights of the Round Table.
Yes.
They're grappling with this immense responsibility.
Absolutely.
They're trying to maintain order in a world that's rapidly changing.
A world that's rapidly changing. And there's even debate about whether Arthur might have a secret heir.
I was like, is that going to be the plot twist?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder, where is Merlin in all of this? His absence is significant.
Oh, it's huge.
It creates this void, in terms of guidance, wisdom, and it leaves the knights to figure things out on their own.
Right.
It's interesting, though, that we're introduced to Nimue.
Yes, Nimue.
Merlin's apprentice. She steps into this advisory role, wielding her own powerful magic.
And then, amidst all this turmoil, Colin rises through the ranks, knighted, joins the Round Table. Seems like a dream come true. But I sense this tension,
Yes.
He seems almost uncomfortable with his newfound status.
Yeah.
Like, does he belong, You know what I mean?
Right.
He's always idealized this world, and now...
It speaks to that burden of leadership, I think.
Yes.
The weight of expectations that comes with being a knight of the Round Table, particularly in a world that's lost its king.
And then, just when you think the world couldn't get more complicated, we have Sir Palamons.
Oh, yes.
This Saracen knight who brings...
a whole other dimension to the story. His inclusion is brilliant. He embodies this intersection of cultures,
Yes.
bringing a fresh perspective to this traditionally British-centric world of Arthurian legend.
I mean, right away we see his indifference to Camelot.
Right.
He's like, well, it's not Baghdad, comparing it to the grandeur of his own city.
Challenging those preconceived notions of what constitutes a great civilization.
His swordsmanship.
Yes.
Described as so elegant.
Elegant and unique.
Unique, exotic almost, compared to the fighting styles of the British knights. And then there is encounters with the questing beast.
Oh, the questing beast.
It just screams Arthurian legend, but it's also a symbol of, those challenges and wonders that these knights face.
Right, right.
What I found interesting is that even after he's knighted, he doesn't fully integrate.
He doesn't.
Into British society.
No. It highlights the cultural differences, those complexities of trying to fit into a foreign world.
It makes me think about those broader questions of identity and belonging. What does it even mean to be a knight? Can those ideals transcend cultural boundaries?
These are questions that resonate even today.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially in a world that's becoming increasingly interconnected. It makes you think about the challenges of bridging cultural divides, finding common ground in a world that's often defined by difference.
Now, the novel also throws in some really intriguing twists regarding Arthur's past. We uncover these unsettling truths about his lineage and the events surrounding his birth.
Oh, for sure.
It's almost like the author's peeling back the layers of myth, revealing a more human, a more flawed side to this legendary figure.
Yeah. The revelation about Arthur's conception through Uther's rape of Igraine, it's disturbing.
It really is.
It casts this dark shadow on this idealized image of the legendary king. And I think it forces us to confront those romanticized notions of heroism and the complexities of legacy. It's a reminder that history is often messy and that even the most revered figures, they have their share of darkness.
And then there's Morgan Le Fay,
yeah.
shrouded in mystery. Right. Is she an ally? Is she an enemy? Playing her own game?
She's playing her own game. What captivated me about the novel's portrayal of Morgan is that it provides a glimpse into her traumatic past.
Yeah.
We learn about Uther's abuse towards her and her sisters, adds this tragic dimension to her character.
It doesn't excuse her actions.
Of course not.
But it helps us understand.
It gives us a better understanding.
Her motivations.
Her motivations and the pain that drives her. It's a reminder that villains are often made, not born, right?
The author is challenging us to look beyond those simplistic good versus evil narratives.
Exactly.
And recognize the complexities of human motivation.
Yeah. And it's a reminder that even those who are often portrayed as villains have their own stories. They have their own reasons for behaving the way they do.
Of course, you can't talk about Arthurian legend without mentioning the quest for the Holy Grail. And in the Bright Sword, this quest, it's perilous.
Oh, yeah.
It exacts this high cost from the knights who embark on it. It's not just about finding a sacred object.
Right.
It becomes a journey of self-discovery.
Self-discovery. And what struck me about this particular portrayal of the Grail quest is the disillusionment.
So the disillusionment.
That sets in. The knights encounter suffering, chaos, and they begin to question the very ideals that they thought they were upholding.
It really is a powerful contrast to those romanticized stories we often hear about the Knights of the Round Table. It makes you think about, the gap between those idealized versions of chivalry and the often brutal realities of life.
For sure.
Even in a world filled with magic and legend. One of the most poignant moments for me was that encounter with Guinevere.
Oh, yes.
She reveals her own longing for a child.
She does.
Referring to it as their lost grail.
Their lost grail. It speaks volumes about the theme of loss and the longing for something unattainable.
Yeah. I mean, what does it even mean to search for something as elusive as the Holy Grail when the world around you is falling apart, right?
That's a great question. Is it a noble pursuit or is it a distraction from the more immediate problems? I think it's one that the author intentionally leaves open for us to ponder.
And then you have Constantine, who abandons the quest altogether.
Yeah.
And he expresses his belief that Lancelot is the rightful king, which it further fragments the already fractured unity of the remaining knights.
So interesting. Such a bold move. It highlights the growing disillusionment with the traditional quest for the Holy Grail.
Right.
And the search for alternative solutions.
Yeah.
In a world that no longer adheres to the old rules.
And then it brings us back to Column's own journey of self-discovery.
Oh, yeah.
He's grappling with his past.
Yeah.
Questioning his worthiness.
His worthiness. Wrestling with the realization that he might not be who he thought he was.
It's such a relatable theme. Even in a fantastical setting like this, I felt so much empathy for Colum during that scene where he confronts Lord Alistair, remember?
Yeah.
His former abuser.
Oh, yes, of course.
Struggling to forgive.
Right.
Wrestling with anger, resentment, the lingering pain of those past traumas.
It's a raw and emotional moment.
It really is.
That speaks to the human experience of overcoming adversity, seeking healing.
And then the Lady of the Lake. I love this. She declares that he's been a true knight all along.
That he's been a true knight all along.
It's such a powerful statement, suggesting that true knighthood isn't about birthright or lineage.
It's about the qualities you embody.
The choices you make, the commitment to honor and justice.
Exactly.
It makes you think about how we often define ourselves by external factors, when true worthiness, it lies within.
It does.
But just when you think Colum has found his place, the story takes this dramatic turn. Lancelot reveals his plan to remake Britain in his own image. And it's clear that his vision clashes with the values of Arthur's Camelot, sets up this conflict between tradition and innovation, upholding the old ways and forging a new path forward.
It's a mirror reflecting our own world.
Isn't it?
We're constantly grappling with those same questions.
And even Guinevere expresses disillusionment with Lancelot's plan. She accuses him of being a child killer, referencing the loss of their unborn children, a pain that clearly still haunts her.
A powerful scene. It highlights the personal cost of ambition and those destructive consequences of choices that are made without considering the impact on others.
And then, the Saxons
are right.
It signifies a new era for Britain. It's like the world is about to be turned upside down.
Underscores that theme of change and the uncertainty of the future.
And no one knows what will emerge from the chaos.
It's a brilliant way to end this first part of the deep dive. Leaves us on the edge of our seats, wondering what's going to happen next.
I know.
And how these characters will navigate this new reality. It reminds us that even in a world steeped in legend, history marches on.
It does.
Bringing with it new challenges, a reshaping of the very landscape of power.
It makes you think about how even in our own lives, there are those moments of upheaval and change.
Right.
And it's up to us to find a way forward, to adapt and discover new possibilities amidst the uncertainty.
Exactly. And that's, I think, a really powerful message to take away from this first part of our exploration. It's a reminder that even in the face of adversity, there's always hope. There's always the potential for growth and transformation.
Absolutely.
We just have to be willing to embrace the journey, even when it's uncertain where it might lead.
That's a great way to
end part one of this deep dive.
I'm excited to see where we go next.
Me too. I think things are going to get really interesting.
They always do.
They always do.
And that's what keeps us coming back, right?
That's right. The beauty of a good story.
It is.
It keeps us engaged. It keeps us thinking. It keeps us questioning.
And that's what we're here for, right?
Yeah.
To explore, to learn, to dive deep into these stories that have captivated us for centuries.
Exactly. And to find those connections.
Yes.
Between those ancient tales and our own lives today.
Because they still resonate, don't they?
They absolutely do.
And that's the magic of it all.
That's the magic.
It's timeless.
Timeless.
So until next time, keep exploring those stories.
Keep asking those questions.
And keep those deep dives going.
And we'll see you back here soon for more adventures.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. One thing that really struck me about Colum, was his resilience.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, think about it. Everything he's endured, that brutal childhood, the disillusionment of his Camelot dreams, and now this chaotic world.
Yeah.
Yet he doesn't give in to bitterness or despair.
That's so true.
It's remarkable.
He could have easily become jaded, cynical, but instead he clings to those ideals of knighthood.
He does.
It makes you wonder, where does he find that inner strength, especially surrounded by so much darkness?
Well, the novel doesn't shy away from portraying that darker side.
No, it doesn't.
Does it? Yeah. Violence, betrayal, moral ambiguity. They're all woven into the narrative.
I mean, we see it pretty vividly in the deaths of several knights, especially Sir Villiers' demise at the hands of the Green Knight.
Mm-hmm.
Brutal reminder that even in this world of, supposed chivalry, those ideals can be shattered pretty easily.
Yeah.
And it makes you question, are these knights truly upholding those ideals?
Right.
Or are they clinging to a romanticized version of the past?
Exactly. And it's not just external threats they face. Remember Sir Bedivere's experience?
Oh, in Londinium.
In Londinium. He's searching for connection, for love.
Right.
But ends up entangled in violence.
And despair.
It's a stark contrast.
It is.
To that image of the noble knight.
his decision to kill that man,
Right.
it's portrayed as both this release of pent-up frustration,
Right.
but also like this descent into darkness.
It is.
It made me realize that even those who strive for honor can be tempted by those darker impulses.
Absolutely.
Especially when faced with those harsh realities. And then there's the Wild Hunt. So chilling.
Oh,
the Wild Hunt, it's almost like a symbol of the unraveling of the old order, wouldn't you say?
I would say.
It adds to that sense of dread and uncertainty that hangs over everything.
Yeah, the Wild Hunt's a fascinating element, drawn from, European folklore, often depicted as this ghostly procession of hunters and hounds, heralding chaos.
And misfortune.
Misfortune. By including it, the author taps into that primal fear of the unknown, this sense that something ancient and powerful is on the move.
Yeah, like the fabric of reality is fraying.
Yeah.
And those magical forces from the other world, they're becoming more and more difficult to ignore.
They are.
It makes you wonder what impact that's going to have on the characters, especially on Colum, who is already, grappling with his own sense of identity.
You're right to bring up Colum. He's pulled into these extraordinary events, yet, he remains an outsider in many ways.
Right.
He's not of noble birth.
Right.
And he carries the weight of his traumatic past. And his journey to the other world,
oh, yes.
It becomes this pivotal moment in his development.
For sure.
Forcing him to confront his fears and those lingering questions about who he truly is.
It's in the other world that he encounters Morgan Le Fay again.
He does.
And this time, we get a much deeper understanding of her character. We learn about her motivations, the pain that drives her actions, and it's hard not to feel a sense of empathy for her, even though, she's done some terrible things.
Well, her backstory, particularly the revelation of Uther's abuse toward her and her sisters, it adds this tragic dimension to her character. It doesn't excuse her choices, of course.
Of course not.
But it helps us understand the roots of her anger and resentment.
And I feel like the author's challenging us, right, to look beyond those simplistic labels of good and evil.
Right.
Recognize the complexities of human motivation.
Absolutely. Villains are often made, not born.
That's right. Yeah, and what's interesting, too, is that she doesn't fit neatly into that traditional villain role.
She doesn't. She's capable of both cruelty
and compassion.
And she has this vision for reshaping the world according to her own will.
She even challenges, I love this, she challenges Colum's romanticized view of Camelot.
She does.
Forcing him to confront those injustices and compromises.
Yeah.
That were often overlooked in the pursuit of this seemingly noble ideal.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a powerful moment of disillusionment for him.
It is.
But it's also a necessary step, I think, in his growth.
Oh, it's a necessary step.
And it's not just Colum who undergoes a transformation.
Right.
Nimue, who, initially seems like this very capable apprentice of Merlin's.
Right.
She faces her own trials.
She does.
I found her journey fascinating, especially how she navigates the world of courtly politics while wielding her magic to protect herself and those she cares about.
Nimue's journey is all about power, magical and personal.
Yes.
We see her grappling with the complexities of wielding magic and her confrontation with Merlin. I mean...
Oh, such a pivotal moment.
It's a pivotal moment. She rejects his advances and exposes his manipulations, shattering that image of the wise and benevolent mentor.
Yeah.
It's a powerful act of defiance.
It is.
And it highlights that theme of female empowerment
in
this world that's dominated by men.
And that scene where she confronts Merlin, I mean, it resonated with me on so many levels.
Really?
It's a reminder that women can be just as strong, just as intelligent, just as capable as men, even in a world that tries to diminish their power.
And it's inspiring to see her stand up for herself, refuse to be controlled.
Absolutely.
Now, let's not forget that dramatic battle at Camelot.
Oh, the Battle at Camelot.
Colum and the remaining knights, they face off against Rience and his forces.
Yeah.
And it is a brutal clash of ideologies and ambitions.
It really highlights, I think, those high stakes of this power struggle, those devastating consequences of war.
It does.
I mean, it was heartbreaking to see those losses, even on both sides.
Yeah.
It made me realize that, even in a world with magic and, these legendary figures, war is still a messy and tragic affair.
It is. The novel doesn't glorify it. It shows the human cost, the pain, the suffering that lingers long after the battles are over.
And Nimue's intervention in that battle.
Oh, yeah.
Powerful moment. I mean, she unleashes her magic, causes the earth to open up, swallow Radiance's soldiers. It's a display of raw power, right?
Raw power.
Demonstrating her commitment to defending Camelot. But it also raises these questions, I think.
It does.
About the ethics of using magic for destruction.
That's a theme that resonates today.
Doesn't it?
We're constantly grappling with the potential for technology, to be used for both good and evil.
Right.
The choices we make about how to wield that power, they have far-reaching consequences.
They do. The introduction of Sir Scipio, the Roman knight, that also adds another layer.
Oh, yes. He embodies that clash between the old world and the new.
I love it.
He represents, those remnants of a once mighty empire, struggling to find its place in a changing world. Makes you think about the cyclical nature of history.
Doesn't it?
How empires rise and fall, and how individuals grapple with those shifts in power.
And his journey from disillusionment to acceptance is really powerful.
It is.
He initially longs to return to Rome, to reclaim that past glory.
Right.
But he finds a sense of belonging in this new world, even though it's not the one he expected.
It speaks to that resilience of the human spirit.
Yes.
Our ability to adapt and find meaning, even in the face of loss and change.
And his story, I think, really underscores that idea that identity and belonging aren't fixed.
Right.
They're fluid.
They're fluid.
They can evolve over time.
They can.
As we encounter new experiences, form new connections.
Absolutely. And even amidst those great historical upheavals, there's still room for individual growth and transformation.
Yes.
It's a reminder that even when the world around us feels chaotic, we can still find our own sense of purpose and connection.
That's a good reminder. One of the things that really surprised me about The Bright Sword was how it explored Arthur's character. We usually see him as this, legendary, almost mythical figure.
Right.
But this novel presents him as a man burdened by the weight of expectations and the shadows of his past.
It's a fascinating approach. The author uses dreams to delve into Arthur's psyche.
Oh, yeah.
Allowing us to glimpse his vulnerabilities, those internal conflicts.
And that scene where Bedivere and Guinevere visit Arthur in Avalon.
Oh, yes.
Hoping to bring him back.
Right.
They find him, content in his dream state, almost at peace. Makes you wonder if he ever truly found that peace while he was alive.
It makes you think, doesn't it, about leadership, sacrifice. What does it even mean to be a ruler? What burdens come with that responsibility? Is it ever possible to escape those burdens, even in death?
And then, that revelation that Arthur knew about his conception through Uther's rape of Igraine adds another layer of tragedy to his story. To know that his very existence stemmed from such a horrific act.
Must have weighed heavily on him. Adds a complexity to his character that we don't often see, I think, in those traditional Arthurian tales.
Good point.
It reminds us that even the most legendary figures are shaped by their past traumas, those complexities of their family histories.
And the realization that Arthur is actually dead, even in Avalon.
Right.
I mean, his mortal wounds, they prove fatal. Even in this world of magic and legend, death is still an inescapable reality.
It is. Shatters that illusion of immortality, doesn't it?
It does.
That often surrounds figures like Arthur.
But even in death, he offers these words of wisdom to Colum.
He does.
Telling him that the world still holds marvels, but they're of a different kind now.
Yeah.
Acknowledging the changing times, encouraging those who remain to, adapt and find new ways to be heroic.
Almost like he's passing the torch, right?
It is.
Urging those who come after him to forge their own paths.
Right.
Find their own meaning in a world that's no longer defined by his presence.
And Bedivere receives a pretty remarkable gift, the restoration of his lost hand. It's symbolic, I think, of healing, renewal.
Oh, absolutely.
Performed by the Lady of the Lake, underscoring those themes of hope and redemption.
Yes, gives a sense of optimism, even as the world around them is falling apart.
But back in the waking world, things are far from peaceful. Lancelot's plan to reshape Britain, it takes this dark turn.
Dark turn. His vision of, eradicating pagan traditions, imposing a strict Christian order.
Yeah.
It clashes starkly with Arthur's more tolerant approach.
It's a chilling reminder of how easily good intentions can be twisted, especially when power is involved. Lancelot's actions, they really highlight the dangers of religious zealotry.
They do.
And that potential for those in positions of authority to abuse their power.
In the name of righteousness.
And it's a theme that resonates, throughout history.
It does, even in our own times.
That's right.
We see how the desire for control, The imposition of one belief system over others can lead to conflict and oppression.
Guinevere's rejection of Lancelot's plan is powerful.
It is.
Her accusation, that he's a child killer, referencing the loss of their unborn children, cuts right to the heart of his hypocrisy, right?
To the heart of his hypocrisy. It shows how his ambition and choices have led to immense suffering, not just for himself, but for those he supposedly loved.
Yeah.
And then, the Saxons arrive on Britain's shores, symbolizing this new era of, upheaval and change. Really highlights that cyclical nature of history.
How empires rise and fall, the world's constantly in flux.
Ultimately, I think the Bright Sword doesn't offer easy answers or neat resolutions.
It doesn't. It leaves us grappling.
It does.
With those complexities of a world in transition.
Where those old certainties have crumbled.
And the future is uncertain. It's a fitting conclusion, I think, for a story that's all about change, loss, and that enduring power of myth and legend.
It reminds us that even in a world of magic and fantasy, the most profound stories are often those that reflect the complexities of human experience.
Our struggles, our choices.
Our enduring hope for a better future.
And as we wrap up this deep dive,
I'm left with a sense of awe, really, at the power of storytelling. The Bright Sword, it takes this familiar legend, breathes new life into it.
It does.
Exploring those timeless themes of power, identity, the search for meaning in a world that's constantly evolving.
It challenges us to think critically.
It does.
About those legends we think we know.
Yeah.
To question our assumptions, consider the perspectives of those who are often marginalized or overlooked.
And it reminds us that even in the absence of legendary figures like Arthur, the quest for a better world continues.
That's a good point. It's up to each of us to navigate the challenges of our time, to find those marvels of a different kind.
To embody those ideals of courage, compassion, and justice in our own lives.
So as we go forth, dear listener, remember the lessons of the Bright Sword.
Embrace the complexity.
Question the easy answers.
And never stop seeking those marvels.
No matter how different they may appear.
The world is full of possibilities.
It is.
And it's up to each of us to shape those possibilities into a future worthy of the legends that inspire us.
Well said. Until next time.
Until next time.